Well, good day to you. This is the first of our Fireside Chats for 2023, and it's going to be with some team members and also some team suppliers too. And I'm really pleased today to welcome Neil Johnson, Director of Apex Recruitment Services from the Midlands. And the reason for the Fireside Chats is I was looking to have these with members and service providers who have some key differentiators, either a unique service offering or simply they're doing things brilliantly. And I've known Neil quite well now, having been a member of team for many years and now the chairman and owner. And I invited him to come and join us and tell us the story about Apex Recruitment, which with my little knowledge has been trading for 40 plus years. I think I'm right on that, Neil. I think the average tenure now of a recruitment company is 6 to 8 years. So Apex have smashed that. So tell us a little bit about the history in the beginning and your role within the business, Neil.
Sure, yeah. The business was started back in 1978 by my mother-in-law. So she was actually advised by a former employer of her to maybe set up a recruitment business. So our first office was back in Banbury in Oxfordshire. At that point, there was only 2 recruitment agencies in Banbury. She then sort of took that forward, and we're very much a generalist recruitment agency. So in terms of number of offices, we maxed out with 5 offices at the height, if you like. We then made a decision going back to 2013, whereby we actually consolidated the high street locations because we actually did some research and found that only 2% of our walk-in candidates were actually being utilised for roles. Yeah. So we were paying for those 2 high street locations and all the costs that go with it, but actually not really getting the benefit from it. So at that point, made a decision. So we actually relocated to a new office just outside Warwick. We had a checklist, and I think about 13 or 14 things on that checklist as what we wanted it to have. And we found a location. It's close to the motorway, close to the railway stations, close to a lot of our big clients as well. So being automotive specialists, we were able to get access to those clients very easily by jumping on the motorway. We've got parking, and it's just a new modern office, open plan. And I think it was a game changer for us. And it meant that my brother-in-law and I, who are the 2 directors that run the business on a day-to-day basis, were able to sit next to each other. And when you've got 2 locations or multiple locations, however much communication you do via email or via Teams or via phone call, it just cannot beat being in the same location. You just overhear things. You're with all your staff all of the time, listen to what they've got to say. You can make some little pointers, some training with them as well. So for me, best thing we ever did was move into that location.
Good. And just you mentioned then automotive recruitment. So tell us a bit about the specialism for Apex and if you've broadened that at all.
Yeah, we very much, as I mentioned, we were a generalist recruitment agency. I joined the business back in 2010. At that point, I would literally be recruiting for anything. I think my first ever job that I recruited for was a telemarketer. I've had a crack at doing a chef for a pub in the middle of nowhere. I've done registered general nurses in care homes. But what we found is that it was very much on a geographical split between our office in Leamington and one in Banbury. But we found that when we're working with clients, they wanted us to be specialists in an area. We've been working with some big automotive clients for a number of years. So we very much took that forward. And again, we're now automotive engineering manufacturing specialists. We offer contract, temporary and permanent recruitment solutions. So we now offer a full recruitment solution to our clients. So if an automotive client comes to us and says, we want a vehicle technician, or we want a data analyst, or we need a finance analyst, we're able to supply them, whether that be on a permanent basis or temporary basis. And I think especially over that COVID period as well, having that flexibility with regards to the employment methodology meant that we were able to benefit from the uptick that we got out the back of COVID. So for us, back in 2020, coming out of COVID, it was all about temporary workers. Then last year, 2022, it was more about permanent recruitment, where the temporary side went down a bit. So it means that we're never ever probably going to find a situation where all parts of our business are performing at the maximum level they could be, but it means that whatever the economy's doing, we're able to react to it and supply our clients with the type of staff that they require.
Yeah, wouldn't it be horrible to do temp or contract and then turn down perm because you didn't have it in your offering? Especially, I think previous to the recording, didn't you have your best year ever on perm last
year? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and that wasn't anything strategic. It wasn't like we said, well, we're actually going to focus on. It was just the way that the market went. I think there've been quite a few economic factors and government changes, IR35, for example, changes that took place as well, which I think have started to drive more people down the permanent route. But I think coming out of COVID, I think companies now have got more confidence. Whether that continues into the next 12, 24 months, who knows? But for 2022, we had clients that were more confident about their marketplace and the economy. They were more prepared to commit to permanent staff. And as we're all aware at the moment, there is a massive candidate shortage. So to encourage somebody to leave their existing role, you really need to offer them a permanent opportunity. Offering them a temporary role or even a temp to perm isn't normally enough to extract them from where they currently are.
No, I get that. And you mentioned you've got that lovely mix now of temp, contract, perm. Or is there? Can you give us an average of the percentages of those
in terms of the split between them?
Yeah.
Well, pre-COVID, sort of 2018, 19, we were up to probably 92% temp contract versus 10% perm. Last year, we were somewhere in the region of 60% temp contract, 40% perm.
Okay.
And again, for this year, I mean, we've done our projections. We think our temp contract numbers will probably increase in terms of the percentage. But again, planning at the moment is proving as challenging as anything, I would suggest.
But that lovely mix brings real value to the business. You know, having a big contract and temp base, that gives you great value. But having the perm offering as well sort of wraps your arms around some of those clients you work with as well and stops other suppliers nudging their way in.
Yeah, exactly. And that was one of our main drivers behind it as well. As I mentioned, the temp contractor side has always been big for us. And I suppose, talking more holistically as well, cash flow is the number one thing. If you are doing temps and contractors, you have to make sure that you've got sufficient cash to fund those temps and contractors, because depending on what payment terms you're working to, you might be paying out hundreds of thousands of pounds before you start getting the money back in again. So having a good relationship with your bank, having any overdraft facilities or invoice financing facilities as well is really important. But as you say, it just means that it's a competitive place for recruitment. We know that. And if you've got a client that you don't want to lose them because you can't offer them something. So therefore having that full suite is very important to us.
You talked about managing the business across various things there, and cash and obviously is king. I know that you at Apex, you shared a story with us, I think one of our regional meetings in the Midlands, about the Goldman Sachs program that you joined. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I actually looked into it probably 5 or 6 years ago. So it's the Goldman Sachs 10,000 program for small businesses. So Goldman Sachs basically fund it, and I suppose you liken it to like a mini MBA. And I think for any particularly small business or startup business, it's definitely something worth looking at. It is residential, so we got to go down to Oxford University. You get to meet people from a whole range of different industry backgrounds. You understand their challenges that they're facing, some of the synergies that you can also pick up from them as well. Because I think sometimes when I speak to recruitment owners, I think we get a little bit caught up in our recruitment bubble. And I always think it's very, very useful to be talking to different businesses and industry sectors to understand what they're doing and any takeaways that you can take from what they're doing and bring them across into recruitment. I've always been a big believer that recruitment should be about a service rather than a sale. Obviously, selling is important, but for me, retention of our existing clients is so important. And we've worked with 50% of our clients now for over a decade. And that doesn't happen by chance. That's because we provide them with a great level of service, and they're really important to us as well. But back to the Goldman Sachs program, it's relatively short. It's about 3 months in duration. You have an application process that you go through, an interview process. So it's the first interview that I'd had for years. So that was actually quite nerve-wracking, funny enough, doing that over Teams. But yeah, it's really useful. It just meant that there was elements there that, even if it's a refresher or a reminder of things that, we've not done that for a while. We've not actually looked at our balance sheet. We've not looked at our cash flow forecast. We've not looked at our marketing proposition, our business development strategy. It just gives you those little bits, and it's experts. There's professors that are coming from universities that are either tutoring or lecturing you. Each week you have a little breakout group with a group that you assign. You talk issues. There's some coursework and homework that you're doing as well. So it was very interesting and very useful as well. So I definitely recommend it, especially as I mentioned, to start-up businesses or people fresh to running a business.
Was that the program that helped you build the different pillars to focus on within the business, or did you have those before?
No, in all honesty, I had them before.
You should share that story, because I don't think people think about the breadth of those sections within the business as much as they think about sales and delivery.
Basically, I have this. My rather crude whiteboard, but basically I've got 5 pillars that we run the business by. So it's business development, operations, finance, PR marketing, and HR. And the way I look at it is that if all of those pillars are all standing tall, then the roof, is stable. If we then start to find that one of the pillars is dropping, then all of a sudden the roof becomes a bit more unstable. And I've got a 12 and 14-year-old girls, and at the end of the week they'll say to me, "Daddy, how's your week been?" And I say to them, "I've got no fires burning." And so my official capacity is operations director. So the way that I see my role is basically making sure that everything is hanging together and is working. I want my team to have the ability to do the job, not be worried about, the IT is not working, or the telephones aren't working, or we've got an issue over here because the building's burnt down. That's my job, is to make sure that everyone can do their job at the best of their ability, and it's not being hampered because they haven't got something to do the job.
So tell us, how many people have you got in the team now? You're in one location. Have you adopted a hybrid operation? How does post-COVID look? What does that look like at Apex?
Yeah, quite different actually. I suppose I'm 45 now. Through my working career, it's always been you go to an office to do a job. Since COVID, obviously work from home became a big thing. And I won't lie, is that my brother-in-law and I, when we were discussing this, we weren't huge advocates of the work from home idea. However, in April last year, we had a good conversation with our recruitment managers and our leadership team, and we were persuaded that it was the right thing to do, was to offer more flexibility for our staff. So we now have optional work from home days on a Tuesday and a Friday. And the office is still available and open to the staff. However, they've also got the option to work from home if that's what their preferred is. We did it initially on a 3-month trial basis to see how that worked out. We ran stats before and after, and back in last year we reviewed it. And honestly, the productivity has remained consistent, whether it be work from home or in the office. In some cases, actually improved. So I think the staff appreciate it, in the fact that they can have that little bit more flexibility. We now finish at 3 o'clock on a Friday as well, because we did some analysis on our clients and found that the majority of them were finishing at lunchtime, early afternoon on a Friday, because again, automotive engineering tends to be like that. So rather than just having people sitting there till 5:30 just for the sake of it, it was like, actually they're on call if the need arises, but they were officially finished at 3 o'clock.
Ah, good. And you didn't answer one of those questions. How many in the team now?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, apologies. 16 of us.
Excellent. And one thing that was interesting to me, and I see the ability to develop as businesses. You mentioned leadership team and their managers as well, and as that structure, I guess, has allowed you to break that 10-head barrier, which a lot of other recruitment companies never do, because bosses struggle to find the managers or leaders, or they might have them, but they might not give them the autonomy and responsibility to take the business forward. Is that been how long did it take to shape that leadership and management team?
Oh, that's a good question. But we take 10 years with a number of false starts along the way, I would suggest.
Yeah.
One of our managers now, she joined us as a trainee 7 years ago. So she's worked her way up she was actually in the care sector, and then moved across, joined us. We've got like a training program that she went through, and is now recruit manager and looks after some of our main automotive clients. So, and then we've got another lady that joined us just after COVID. She'd been made redundant as a result of that company downsizing. So she had a bit more experience already within the recruitment sector. And then I've got a management accountant who, again, is part of the leadership team, who brings quite a different element to it as well.
Yeah.
So she's not a recruiter, but she has a different way of looking at things. And I think it's really important when you are creating a leadership or management team, not just to have all the same types of people, because if you've all got the same type of people, you're all going to have the same ideas.
Yeah.
And nobody really challenges you enough on it. And it's important to have people with, whether it be the sort of disc profile or something similar, whereby you've kind of covered all those bases, just to make sure that you might go with this great bit of business development, but actually is it financially going to be rewarding?
Yeah.
And that's where your management accountant says, hang on a second, have we really thought about that?
So have there been some crossroads in the timeline of the growth of Apex? And I'm thinking more recently since you've joined, where there's been some absolute key successes or some mistakes made that you can advise and support other people or give some advice to other people with? Is there any big things in that timeline that have been a game changer for Apex?
The thing for me has been our Apex values. So as a business, so each year we do an annual strategy day with our staff. So it gives all of our staff the opportunity to come together and talk outside of work hours, to talk about challenges within the business, for example. So back in 2013, when we amalgamated the offices into one, I actually had underestimated how difficult it was going to be. I thought I'd just put the two offices together under one roof and everyone would get on, happy family. But it was almost like an invisible barrier was between the two locations, just in the same location. So the thing we did on that strategy day was to basically divide our Apex values. So we've now got 5 of them, and they've been in the business for 9 years now. Now, back at the sort of back end of 2018, we were having quite a few challenges within the business with some personalities, and we started to move away from those values. So we had a decision to make. We either change the values to be more in line with people that we had in the business at that point, or we change the people to be more in line with the values. And we said, our values are our values. That's what we live by. So we made some really tough decisions at that point with regards to our staff. We had a number of people leave at that point. But for me, best thing we ever did. And the thing that's helped us the most, in my opinion, coming out of COVID and those tough times, is the collaborative nature of the people working within the business.
Brilliant.
I think within recruitment, there's an awful lot of people out there to look after themselves. Our number one thing is you do it for the good of the business, not for yourself. We share vacancies, we share candidates. If someone's busy, we then say, right, you're too busy, that role goes over to these people here. So therefore, our ultimate goal is to service the client to the best of our ability, not to be, well, Bob, he's not going to be upset because I'm not getting that vacancy. But if Bob isn't the right person for it, it's too busy, it needs to go to, I don't know, Janice, because she is the right person to have it. So collaboration within a small business in particular, for me, absolutely key to success.
Brilliant. Thank you. And moving forward, what are the future goals and challenges for Apex, and how do you see, the next year or so for you guys?
It's always quite tricky. You want to sit here and go, we're really positive, and then you interview again in 12 months, and we've had an absolute nightmare of a year. But we are cautiously optimistic, I think, about the next 12 months in particular. The automotive sector hasn't been particularly well performing over the past 12, 24 months because of the shortage of semiconductors. And the expectations are that that's starting to ease now. So the order book for automotive and new car sales is looking more promising for the next 12, 24 months. We tend to look, again, short term, but also longer term as well. We've got a couple of clients talking to us about projects happening in the summer this coming year as well. So I like to think that we're well positioned. We've got good financial stability within the business. We've got good staff. IT infrastructure is strong as well, and I'll keep a close eye on that as well. So I think we've got all the building blocks in place. We're not looking to become the next Randstad or Adecco. As you mentioned earlier, sort of breaking through that 10 barrier is one thing, breaking through the 20 barrier is another. And I think sometimes companies are so keen to look at growth as being either turnover or headcount growth, whereas for us, the key for us is profitability. At the end of the day, we're, as owners of the business, we need it to be profitable to fund our family and our lifestyle. And that doesn't necessarily mean employing 1,000 people. So we very much look at the profitability per head of individuals rather than looking at revenue or headcount. So again, another piece of advice that I would give to people is before taking on more heads, look at the cost of the head. It's not just the salary. There's a lot more to it than that, the all-in cost as well. We talk to our clients about it, but do we look at it ourselves? So for me, it's about sustained, consistent growth rather than going through that boom bust cycle, saying, well, I've employed 5 people this year and we've done this, but then the next year I've got to go down 10. We try to be a lot more consistent than that rather than kind of doing boom bust.
Good. And any other takeaways for anyone before we close? I think you've just given us one, but anything else that you feel optimistic about for the future, or are you taking on any more staff? Even if it's 1 or 2.
Well, funny enough, I'm interviewing this evening. So yes, to answer your question, I mean, we've got 2 open roles at the moment. So, but again, what I have learned, I think, over the past 10 years, or coming up for 12 now, actually, is that don't rush, employ the right people, but employ them, for me, based on personality and characteristics, because you might find the best recruiter out there, but if they come in and they're a bad apple, the amount of issues that it will cause you is, I can't even put a figure around it, both in terms of time and money. I remember back in 2018, 5-minute chats that took an hour because she didn't like him and he didn't like her and all that sort of stuff. It becomes so mentally and physically draining. And as the owner of the business, you've got to enjoy the job. You've got to enjoy what you're doing. And if you're not enjoying it, it doesn't really matter how much money you're making. It just becomes a huge strain. So I think enjoyment has got to be key. And if you're not enjoying it because somebody else is in your business making it unenjoyable, do something about it. And I think as a small business, sometimes we're inclined to just let things ride and we just carry on with it because it's easy. Sometimes you do have to make some tough decisions. And you're not going to be there to be popular all the time. You want to be respected. But again, you do have to make tough decisions as well, because ultimately, if it is your business, you've got to do what's right for your business and you as an individual.
It sounds to me like some of those decisions, especially in 2018, were made for the culture of the business and the benefit of the majority by and far. If I can just close by an observation, if you like, look outside looking in, I think one of the things you've been able to do at Apex very successfully, because I'm in a fortunate position of being able to look and have conversations with lots of different recruitment owners, is that as an SME recruiter who's in the Midlands, you've been able to punch significantly above your weight with major corporations. Jaguar Land Rover, Arga is another one, and you've never been frightened to do that. And a lot of the SME recruiters don't go for big corps because they just feel they can't service them, or they'll be crushed on price, or they'll be beaten by the competition or bigger competition. But Apex, you've been able to bat on those wickets and hold your own for many, many years. I know with Jaguar Land Rover, and also I mentioned Arga as well. And you've got some great. I think other people should have that ambition, because you guys have really done well in that space, and
Yeah.
big congratulations.
Yeah, and I think the beauty of working with those big organisations is that you get multiple roles per year as well.
Yeah,
But when you're working with SME businesses, then you might get 1, 2, 3 roles a year, and then you're always looking for the next one. Whereas for us, and again with the big businesses, you then get that mixture of temp contract and permanent recruitment
yeah,
as well. And if you can offer all of them, then that's great from them because they come to you and say, "Well, I can help you with it."
yeah,
Yeah, you may not have it exclusively, and obviously, I know a lot of people prefer to have exclusive assignments, and I totally understand that. But we have smaller businesses that we work with as well that we do have exclusive arrangements with. So again, going back to we spoke about earlier, it's having that blend
yeah.
and what works for you as a business. But yeah, I definitely wouldn't be scared to go after the bigger ones because at the end of the day, they need recruitment help as much as anybody else. So
Brilliant. Well, Neil, thank you very much for the Apex story.
no problem.
A
Thank you for having me.
really good first fireside chat. So thank you very much indeed. And if any other members or service providers are out there watching this and you've got an exceptional story to tell, contact me and get on the list, and we'll do a story with you as well. So thank you. I'll see you soon, hopefully at one of our regional meetings in the Midlands.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Nicely, Simon. Thanks, Sam.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed.
Cheers.